Konnichiwa, everyone, and welcome to part 7 of What If Naruto had Kubikiribocho. Alright, last time we finished off the preliminary round of tuning exams, and now we have a mission with Anko taking Naruto under her wing. What could possibly go wrong? Well, only one way to find out. But first, you know the drill. Hit that big red subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video, and leave a comment down below. But before all that, and besides all that, let's jump right into this fanfiction reading. Chapter 7 Eyes Like Mine. Naruto and Anko stood before the third Hokage, the older of the two filled with a giddy sense of hope, while the other was left with curiosity. After all, what would it mean for his train if the elderly leader said no to Anko's request? I suppose I could always go back to my original methods, but increase the intensity this time around, LeBlanc rationalized. But I honestly don't want it to come to that. I'm actually a little hopeful the old man says yes, just so I have some time outside the village, if nothing else. As if reading the young Genin's thoughts, the Sarutobi clan had pulled his pipe away and finally answered the purple-haired Jonin's request. Before I even think of agreeing to this, I want you to explain the reason you've chosen Naruto out of all Genin who not just made it to the finals, but also reside within the village. What makes him so special? Seeing her Hokage so serious cooled Uncle's eager mood. And as she settled down and stood straight, the beautiful woman answered the white-robed man that sat before her. For starters, Hokage-sama, I owe him a debt. During my running with Orochimaru, I was incapacitated, and rather than leave me there to chase him, the young Uzumaki stayed behind and made sure I arrived at the tower safely. I can't possibly let something like that go. Not when I know the number of Genin willing to perform such an act is something I believe I can count on one hand. But aside from that, after hearing his report back at the tower and seeing him in action during the preliminaries, I feel that Naruto Uzumaki has an unrivaled amount of potential that is yet to be fully explored. And I'd like to be the first person to try. Hokage Hiruzen gave his subordinate a curious gaze as he asked her how she felt about the young boy's time under Kakashi. Are you saying he hasn't already done a good job in tapping into this unrivaled potential? Of course not, Hokage-sama, Uncle immediately replied. I meant no offense to my fellow Lee Shinobi. All I was trying to say is that much of the boy's training has been in brute force, and although using 3 affinities at his age is impressive, I feel that Naruto Uzumaki should be instructed in the subtle arts of our profession, along with the loud. And you believe yourself to be the ideal teacher? It wasn't a question. Hiruzen Sarutobi knew that Anko never did anything without being sure first. It was why she had never bothered to choose any students, as she had not met any that made her certain that they would succeed under her care. The woman's shrewd mind and passionate words made Hiruzen feel more secure about placing Naruto in her care. Very well then. I grant you permission to be his temporary instructor. Once the finals are over, if he is not promoted to Chunin, he will once again be assigned to Team 7 and placed under the care of Kakashi. Anko's face split into a wide, happy grin, one that stretched so far that her warm brown eyes were forced to close, giving her the impression of a kid in a candy store. Bowing low, she thanked her Hokage for coming back up and inquiring about her mission. So does this mean I could take him with me to the land of sea? This threw Hiruzen for a loop. The smoke he just sucked down from his pipe, catching in his lungs from the shock, Sputtering through a coughing fit, the elderly Kage gave his subordinate a very wary stare of disbelief. What? Uncle, did you just get me to agree to let me train Naruto for the month? I thought you want a reduction in missions during this time, not more. Uncle gave the old fire shadow a rapid shake of her head to indicate that wasn't the case. Of course, I still want the mission, Lord Hokage. It's imperative to my teaching style. I want the kid to see what I intend to teach him in action, so he'll know how it's applied in a real life situation. I don't want to just have him learn and practice something in the field, then take it into the real world blindly. I want him to truly understand what it means to be a shinobi. And that includes the assassination aspect of the job, too. This bit of information made Naruto turn sharply in his temporary sense's direction. Assassination? What kind of mission was Uncle trying to get him into? The head of the Sarutobi clan saw this and asked Anko if she was serious. He's only 13 years old, but what makes you think he's ready for assassination? He tore a hole right through the sound getting in the very first match of the preliminaries, didn't he? What's wrong with him having experienced the art of silent killing, too? Because in this case of assassination, the target is generally asleep, unarmed, or otherwise unaware of the act. Naruto's kill was during a match against someone who was trying to kill him. It's completely different. Uncle's gaze hardened a little. She wasn't going to budge. That doesn't change the fact that Naruto Uzumaki is a shinobi, a ninja. He will, at some point in his career, perform an assassination. Why not now? I went on my first mission when I was only a year older than him. But those are different times, Hilderson cut her off. The number of needed assassinations has dropped significantly since you were getting Anko, and the few that are needed now usually get done by my Anbu members. I gave this one to you because of the delicate subject it involved, in the hope it would help with your memory. Curious about it, but choosing to ignore the bit about Uncle's memory, Naruto rose his hand as an indicator he wished to speak. When his Hokage acknowledged him, the blonde pleaded his new sensei's case. Actually, old man, I'm okay with being sent on a mission with Anko Sensei. In case you forgot, I do still intend to take that hat from you someday. And what kind of Hokage would I be if I was unable to relate and be open to discussing assassination with one of my subordinates? You know of the dangers and psychological damage due to performing them yourself, so you're able to be a sort of counselor for those you send out. Shouldn't an aspiring Kage not need the same ability? Hearing the younger shinobi's words and the level of seriousness laced in with every word made the elderly Hokage proud. The Naruto in front of him was nothing like the one from his academy days. The young genin that stood before him was a true budding ninja, one that he felt was worth being given this chance. Very well then, Hiruzen relented while steeping his fingers. I will allow you to take Genin Uzumaki on this mission, Anko, but only because I trust your ability to bring him back alive. If you return to the village without him, or his career is brought to an end by this in any other way, then be prepared to hand over your headband. Uncle nodded firmly. Her usual lackadaisical attitude switched off in the face of this condition. Seeing that his subordinate understood, the elderly Hokage began to relay the mission specs to both Anko and Naruto. Alright then. Now that we've got that settled, let's get on with it. Joining Anko Mitarashi and getting Naruto Uzumaki. Your mission is an A-ranked assassination mission. Your target is a man that goes solely by the name of Amachi. The target resides in the land of sea and is reported to be a scientist under the employee of Orochimaru. His Highness' crimes against humanity, through way of his experiments, have caused the abduction and disappearance of over 30 people. Your primary mission is the assassination of this individual. However, if possible, You are to collect in return with as much of this man's notes as possible. Anything we could use against Orochimaru in the future is information too valuable to ignore. Once he finished explaining their objectives, Anko and her blonde pseudo-student gave silent confirmation that they accepted the mission. From there, the elderly shinobi handed them the file to go over before dismissing them. Naruto walked from his apartment towards the main gate of the village. Uncles instructed him to do a double check to make sure he had everything necessary for the mission. She told him to think hard because while something may seem trivial, like say a pack of explosive tags, you never know what you'll need on a mission, and that "I don't need it" thought could cause major casualties. So, the blonde made sure to go over everything he had at home and pack whatever tools he might need. Once he finished, Naruto found himself walking the back roads towards the gate where he'd be meeting Anko. His reason being that using this route gave him time to think without risking bumping into anyone he knew. And thinking was something the blonde felt was needed, to plan out his next steps. Because while he had chosen to take up Zabuza's mantle and ultimately surpass the man, was that it? Was that all that there was going to be was that all there was going to be to his ninja career? Naruto felt his eyes itch with the desire to turn and look back at the Hokage monument, to be reminded of his original goal in life. Did he still want it? If he was being honest with himself, yes. In spite of his promise to the dead demon of Kiri, Naruto actually let go of his first dream. Let me try that again. In spite of his promise to the dead demon of Kiri, Naruto never actually let go of his first dream. All that changed was his reason for wanting the hat. His time with Haku helped open his eyes to the truth. He didn't need the acknowledgement from every person in the village. No. He just needed the love of those he held close. It was for them that he would get stronger, become the Hokage, so that he'd be better able to protect those he considered precious. The only thing was, Naruto could probably count on both hands who that this included, and for a moment it made the young Uzumaki wonder if his strength would be enough to make his dream come true. No, Naruto shook his head in denial. I'm only just being hard on myself again. Haku only had Zabuza, and he was able to get so strong just protecting just him. But even still, I'm taking his words the wrong way. It's not about the number of people, it's the principle. I got to remember that. I can't ever forget or think less of my precious people like that again. I'll get stronger for them and become the next Hokage, so I'll be better able to protect them. It's my promise to them and myself. By the end of his declaration, Naruto noticed he made it to the meeting spot. His blue eyes scanned the area in search of his temporary sensei, and he felt annoyance build up inside at not finding the woman anywhere nearby. Oh, come on, he complained. Don't tell me all Jonin are late. I was hoping it's just Kakashi Sensei, but I guess I was wrong. He crossed his arms in frustration as he muttered, If I would have known about this earlier, I would have stopped and had some ramen at least. But then you'd be late, my little hatchling. That would have been a terrible impression to make on your first mission with me. The voice came from seemingly everywhere at once, and Naruto snapped his head up to search for the source. It was Anko's voice, of that the blonde had no doubt, but he couldn't pinpoint the older woman's location. Anko obviously saw this fruitless search, though, because she left from her position before standing up from her place by the guard post to show that she had been there the whole time. Naruto's eyes widened at this realization, because it meant that, had she been an enemy, he would have been dead. So this is another difference between a Genin and a Jonin. Those guys in the forest were pretty easy to sniff out, but you? I couldn't even hear you breathe. I know, but that's a nice little trick you got there, hatchling. There aren't very many ninja who think to do what you did to trying to find me. Or rather, they can't focus their chakra that way, Anko explained. But when she saw the light that began to glint in her pseudo-student's eyes, she decided to bring the gaming back to reality. Gotta remember, he's still a kid, despite his talent, she thought before moving to speak again. But don't let that go to your head, kid, because just as you saw, you haven't even mastered that skill yet, and I could have easily slit your throat without you ever even knowing. It's still a long way for you to go before your Jonin level, but I'll make sure that by the end of the month, you're going to be tuning level without a doubt. While initially a bit let down by her assessment, Naruto perked up at hearing the beautiful woman say that she wasn't going to give up on him. And better yet, she was going to make him a chunin. In spite of himself, Naruto couldn't help imagining the way it feel wearing a flak jacket that signified Man, what are you doing, Chaos? In spite of himself, Naruto couldn't help imagining the way it'd feel wearing the flak jacket that signified that he was no longer a genin. His thoughts were cut short when Uncle tapped him on the head and said, "And now that lesson 1 is over, it's time we get going, my little hatchling. We wouldn't want our target moving and getting away now, would we?" Naruto shook his head and rubbed the spot the old woman had caused to itch before he began to follow her. Surprisingly, they were running through the trees. "We're tree hopping? Usually my squad has a mission. Usually when my squad has a mission, we don't rush it." Uncle looked beside her to the blonde youth she'd taken under her wing and explained that that's because his team had been doing escort missions and glorified errands. This is an assassination, a real life mission with a time frame. We need to get there as soon as possible, which means there's no time for sightseeing. Naruto pondered this for a moment before deciding she had a point, before remembering another thing he was curious about. "Why are you calling me a hatchling?" At this, Uncle gave the young shinobi a playful pout. "What? Can't I give my student a nickname? I'm sure Kakashi does it too. Or do you just not like me?" When Uncle turned her head away and pretended to start crying, Naruto could feel his head drop in disbelief. Sometimes it was hard to remember Uncle was a jonin. "No, it's nothing like that, Uncle Sensei. I was just curious, is all. You see, Kakashi Sensei doesn't actually give us nicknames, so it's new to me. I really don't mind the name, honest." "Really? Un- really?" Uncle's face whipped back around with a ridiculous, obviously fake, hopeful expression. "Yeah, really. Maybe it's not too late to turn around and forget this whole thing," Naruto thought as he listened to the woman beside him laugh at his annoyed face. While Naruto was on his way to aid his first assassination, many of his fellow Genin were busy with their own kind of training. At the Hyuga compound, Hinata stood before her father, Hiyashi, and the man's study. He was looking over a series of papers while his eldest daughter waited for him to address her. After making the young girl wait for 5 minutes and seeing she wasn't going to break down in nervousness, Hiyashi asked what the girl wanted. "Father, I wish to ask you for I wish to ask you for you to resume instructing me in our gentle fist," she answered with a bow. "I've managed to make it through the preliminaries of the Chunin selection exam and wish to represent our family properly during the finals. As an acting heiress, I feel that anything less than perfection is unacceptable to present to any foreign prospects coming to our village. I ask this not as your daughter, but as the next head of our family. Help me to not embarrass the Hyuga clan." Hiyashi sat and stared at his daughter. Internally, he felt surprised at the young girl's words, as he knew Hinata to be terribly shy, and usually his daughter couldn't speak more than 2 or 3 words to him. Where did this come from? And then there's her words. She's deliberately pointing out her flaws, but Hinata's bringing them up in such a way that she's letting me know she doesn't wish to project those weaknesses during the finals. It was these points that helped the Hyuga clan leader make his decision. Very well, Hinata. I will resume your training. However, I reserve the right to pull out of this agreement if I feel you aren't making enough progress within a reasonable time. Years of living in a compound helped the young heiress hide her joy at her father's words, and instead just replied with a bow and a quiet thank you. Although her pearl-like eyes widened when her father said they were going to start now. But Hinata wasn't the only one in Kona who was gearing up for the finals. On the other end of the village, far from the clan compounds and hidden among the homes of average civilians, Tenten could be found in her backyard staring down a man equal in height to Hiyashi, and in the man's daughter's opinion, equal in prowess as well. His name was, and forgive me if I butcher the ever-living hell out of this, Sanosuke Sagara. He was Tenten's father and a skilled swordsman. Like Naruto, the man used a large-style weapon, but instead of a broadsword, Senousuke wielded a zanpakuto. However, the sword's immense weight did nothing to impede his ability with a weapon, as demonstrated by the way he easily blocked his daughter's diagonal swing. You'll need to do better than that if you want to have any hopes of being that Uzumaki kid. At least from the things you told me, anyway. Sanosuke instructed for pushing Tenten back and using his zanpakuto as a springboard so he could switch into an aerial kick. He was proud when the bun-haired girl managed to dodge it, but frowned when she immediately charged back in. Wrong! Sanosuke alerted his daughter before planting both feet into her chest with a double kick. As his daughter lay gasping for breath, the former mercenary explained what she had done wrong. You need to stop rushing things, Tenten. Don't always be so prone to act first. It's okay to take time and move away from your opponent to strategize. If you don't, and all you do is attack, you become predictable. And from what I understand, predictability in your line of work gets you killed, right? The man's daughter hung her head in shame. He was right. She was acting foolish. But that's what this is all for, the weapon mistress thought as she hauled herself to her feet for him to, so that I could fix the mistakes that caused me to lose out to Naruto in the first place. Smiling as she thought of facing the blonde again in the finals, Tintin readied herself for her father's next attack. And it wasn't just the Kunoichi who were busy training either. Miles away from the village, Sasuke Uchiha was desperately trying to dodge Kakashi's fierce taijutsu assault. They had tried reactivating the inverted eye that the young Genin had used against Kiba, but were unsuccessful. So, instead, they worked to get Sasuke used to not only his lack of vision, but also working to increase the boy's speed. You're going to need to be even faster than Lee if you hope to stand any chance against Gaara in the finals, Kakashi had told him. Because when this month is over, if you haven't at least managed to match his speed, then you will die. As he got hit by another kick to the chest, Sasuke felt his anger, but also his resolve strengthened. He would surpass Lee. He would defeat Gaara, and then he would use his newfound strength to help him reach his goal. He would make Itachi pay, no matter what it took or where he was forced to go. Sasuke would avenge his mother's death. It took them most of the first day, but Naruto and Anko managed to reach the closest port before nightfall. But where Naruto thought they would now wait and rest, his temporary sensei proved him wrong again. Nope, the snake mistress said with a shake of her head. We're boarding tonight, so that we'll be there by morning. But Kakashi Sensei didn't. Kakashi wasn't taking you guys on a real mission, Gaki. You had time to rest. But when you're with me, you better be ready to play hardball, because I guarantee there's going to be nights where we won't even sleep. Naruto saw the serious look in Anko's pupilless brown eyes and made him realize that there was a reason such high ranking missions were saved for Jonin level and above shinobi. They weren't just dangerous, but taxing on the body as well. Something no ordinary genin would be able to handle. But Zabuza wasn't an ordinary genin. And if I'm going to honor him, then I can't afford to be either. Looking back at Anko, the blonde could see that she was waiting to see what he'd do. With his head on straight again, Naruto nodded firmly as a signal he was ready. This brought a smile to the woman's face as she led him to where they would purchase their tickets for the boat. And even though the boy had hesitated a moment ago, Anko had no doubt in her mind he would continue the mission. She'd chosen right. Now she just had to hope he'd be able to be there when it mattered. I guess I'll start by teaching him the striking shadow snake while we wait to talk again, the woman thought as they made their way to their ride. Because something told Anko this mission wasn't going to turn out anything like she planned. Soft, light brown eyes shot open as years of instinct took over. As a shinobi who often took dangerous missions on foreign soil, Uncle Mitarashi learned to be a light sleeper. And that's why, when she heard the floorboards creak outside her cabin door, the woman was out of bed and against the wall with a kunai in hand, waiting to see if they would finally make their move. This is the this is the third time since we left the port, Uncle thought as she steadied her breathing. Whoever it is has stopped in front of my room each time, just to leave after standing there for 10 minutes. To Anko, she believed Naruto and her had been tagged early on in their mission, right before or as they bought their ferry tickets. She believed that their assassination target had expected their imminent arrival and had planned to have his pursuers killed off before they got to him. Good luck trying to get rid of me, the snake mistress growled internally. Because there's no way I'm letting anybody get in my way on this mission. Hadn't had enough of the waiting game. Uncle steeled her conviction and shouldered down her door. She could hear the person on the opposite side gasp in surprise, clearly caught off guard, and she felt warm skin under her fingers as she slammed them against the hallway wall. But just before Uncle could deliver a killing blow, she heard a familiar voice yell out for her to stop. Wait, Sensei, it's me! Brown met blue as Sensei and student locked eyes for a moment. Yeah, try to. Brown met blue as Sensei and student locked eyes, and for a moment everything stopped. Neither shinobi even realized they stopped breathing. Finally, though, Anko's brain registered that she wasn't in any danger, and she let Naruto drop to the floor. Relaxing her shoulders just slightly in case the blonde before her was really an imposter, Uncle eyed the boy on the floor and asked what he was doing. And has it been you I felt standing outside my door? Naruto, for his part, just turned his eyes away, unable to look at his temporary teacher in the eye as he shook his head yes. Why? Was Uncle's simple and yet complicated question. Complicated because the Genin at her feet didn't really know how to answer her. Naruto didn't think he'd be having this conversation with anyone, let alone the woman in front of him. But the past few nights he had just been so hard. I I can't sleep. It's only three little words. Words parents heard all the time from their children. But for Anko, it resonated deep down to her core and pushed forth a memory she'd kept locked away. One where a young girl, a little younger than Naruto, stood before her own sensei and whispered those very same words. A memory where that sensei, still kind and understanding, wrapped his charge in his arms and comforted a young Anko who was feeling scared after her first kill. And without meaning to, Uncle found herself repeating those same words to her own student. It doesn't make you a monster, it, Naruto. In fact, just by the way your kills are bothering you shows how human you are. It's only when you feel nothing for the lives of others that you become a monster. Naruto still looked away as he replied, but I took their lives so easily. I I didn't even think about it. I just did what my instincts said, and I killed those guys. The blonde on the floor heard the boards creak. Oh, he turned his head, only to find that Anko had knelt down so they were eye to eye. A hold, a hold Naruto found he couldn't break, not even when she placed her hand on his head and ran her fingers through his hair. And if you hadn't done those things, if you hadn't killed them, then they would have killed you. Difference is, they would have enjoyed it. Those guys were the monsters, Naruto. You're just a ninja trying to stay alive. But even as she said this, and Naruto felt some of his guilt washed away, he couldn't help thinking about his desire to honor Zabuza. And for the first time, he really questioned whether or not he could do it. And Naruto wasn't the only one suffering from an emotional storm. Back in Konoha, Kiba Inuzuka couldn't sleep either. Tossing and turning in his bed, the shaggy-haired Genin just couldn't get comfortable. It was either too hot, too cold, or something itched like crazy until finally Kiba just gave up and got out of bed. Leaving his room, the Inuzuka walked the hall that led to the bathroom and flipped on the light. What he saw in the mirror didn't surprise him. In fact, he'd been expecting it. His hair, like all Inuzuka, grew fast and now was a wild mess down his shoulders. His eyes were bloodshot and dropped from the lack of sleep, and drooped from the lack of sleep. Reaching a clawed hand up, the brunette scratched an itch in his tangled mane, only to stop and stare at his hand. Seeing those claws reminded him of why he couldn't sleep. Akamaru, his best friend, his companion, his familiar, was dead. No, Kiba growled low in his throat. Not dead. That bastard Uchiha killed him. He murdered my best friend in cold blood. A lack of sleep and pain from Akamaru's death clouded Kiba's mind, leaving him in a fog of rage. One only made stronger by the memories of the meeting his mother had held with the Hokage about the incident. By law, there was nothing that could be done. Killing was allowed during the Chunin exams, and every participant signed a waiver stating they understood death was a possibility. Even Akamaru. The pup's paw print was stamped right beside Kiba's own handwriting. The only thing the Hokage could really do was offer reparations in the form of payment, something Kiba vehemently refused, as no amount of money would replace what he'd lost, or return Akamaru to him. No, Kiba knew there was only one thing that would satisfy him now, and as he stared at his reflection in the mirror and watched it as his eyes turned to slits, he thought about how good revenge was going to feel. Sasuke Uchiha was going to pay. The morning after their talk, Naruto and Anko found themselves seated in her room, talking about how to continue the blonde's training. In this case, summoning. It's a rare and useful tool, Anko started. Something not many shinobi are capable of that could give you the advantage you need during a fight. I myself use snakes. Like Orochimaru? Naruto questioned. Yes, but only because it was a contract he chose to sign. Not saying I don't love being able to summon snakes, but now they've gotten a bad reputation for being his signature. So I try not to do it too often. Something she said caught the blonde's attention. Wait, contract? Well, yeah. Uncle looked at her soon funny. How else did you think it was done? Naruto quirked an eyebrow as he answered her. I thought it had something to do with changing your chakra to look like an animal. I didn't think it was easy to sign on a piece of paper. The blonde's response got an unexpected reaction from Uncle. She laughed. She laughed for a few minutes before finally calming down, and when she did, the ponytailed Kunoichi saw the confused look in her pseudo-student was giving her. So Uncle decided to answer Naruto's unasked question. Sorry about that, Gaki. It's just hearing you say summoning is easy was more than I could take. In fact, if anything, summoning is one of the hardest skills to master. But why? Uncle just sat back and smirked before rolling up her sleeve. With her arm revealed, not only did Naruto's eyes get a glimpse of her unexpectedly smooth skin, but he also noticed a tattoo that was painted on her forearm. It was a snake wrapped around a scythe. This was given to me on the day I proved myself to the snake summons. They bit me here. At this, Uncle showed Naruto the tips of the snake's fangs, where there were two puncture scars, and the venom burned this into my skin from the inside. Naruto cringed at the thought, but couldn't help being intrigued about one thing. You said you had to prove yourself. What did you mean by that? I had to show the snake boss, Manda, that I was worthy to be a summoner, was Uncle's reply. But there was something about this darkness that flashed in Uncle's eyes as the Kunuichi spoke that made Naruto ask, and how did you do that? What did this Manda have you do? At this, Uncle's shoulders slumped in a tired motion, as if she'd just gotten done carrying a heavy load for miles. This was more than enough for Naruto to realize, whatever it was, Uncle wasn't proud of it. And this made him pull back. Or, if it's uncomfortable, you don't have to. No. Uncle cut him off. It's okay. If we're gonna do this, I have to have an open mind a little. I have to open up a little too. When Orochimaru had me sign the snake contract, Manda's personal test was to have me bring him 100 sacrifices, and then I had to watch as he ate them. This news shocked Naruto, and he looked on at Anko in sympathy. He couldn't imagine having to go through something so terrible, having to listen to all those screams and pleas for mercy. Just as he was about to reach over and take her hand, though, she spoke again. It was one of the worst sights I've ever seen. There was so much blood. But after it was over, I was allowed to summon any snake on the contract, other than Manda. Although I never would even if I could. After hearing what this Manda's test was, Naruto shuddered to think of what kind of damage such a monster would do once unleashed. This thought process resulted in another question springing from the blonde shinobi's lips. So am I right in guessing you aren't going to have me sign the same contract as you? Anko answered him with a shake of her head. Nah, at least not now that I'm remembered when I signed it. I mean, before we boarded the boat, I'd thought of having you sign it. But it wouldn't feel right putting you through that. Then why all this talk about summoning? Naruto questioned with a quirked eyebrow. His answer was a smack to the head. Uncle eyed the smart-mouthed blonde before growling out, Maybe because I thought it'd be a good lesson for you to learn, Gaki. Ouch! Naruto grunted in pain before sending Anko an irritated look. Well, if you aren't going to teach me summoning, what am I going to learn? At this, the blonde's temporary sensei leaned back against the wall and casually crossed her arms. Yet, even in her usual trench coat, it was easy for Naruto to notice the way the woman's arm pushed out her chest. Something the blonde youth's budding hormones were excited for. And that was something Uncle noticed. Smirking like her namesake, Uncle leaned forward and eyed her pseudo-student. Well, maybe I could start teaching you the look and turn. This is the second time I've caught you staring, and I'm starting to wonder if there's something here you like. Her teasing snapped Naruto out of his trance, and as he turned his eyes from her tempting cleavage, the Uzumaki boy could feel his cheeks heating up from the embarrassment. Shaking his head to rid himself of any impure thoughts, Naruto fumbled past his tongue to offer a reply. No, that's okay. I don't need it, and I'm sorry. It's just that, um, well. But Uncle waved him off and relaxed her posture. This had the effect of letting up on the pressure of her chest. Smirking at Naruto good-naturedly, she said, I was only kidding. Actually, with the whole summoner thing going out the window for now, I suppose I can teach you something a little simpler. How does a new stealth technique sound? This got Naruto's attention. What kind of technique? It's called the Chameleon's Shadow, and it allows the user to become invisible for as long as they can provide the chakra. A pretty good option for someone like you, but someone with a powerful dojutsu or great enough chakra ability will still be able to find you. As she finished her explanation of what the move was, Uncle could tell her temporary student was indeed interested. On his end, Naruto was already coming up with an interesting combo he could make with a technique like that, and couldn't wait to learn it so he could try it out. One thing's for sure, it would make infiltration a whole lot easier, he thought with an air of excitement about him. Eager to get started, the young blonde leaned forward a bit and asked when she was going to start teaching him. After breakfast, the female shinobi answered. We can't learn on an empty stomach, and I won't be able to focus until I get a bite in me. Well, at first, Naruto was going to protest as he wanted to get started as soon as possible. Any argument was silenced by the loud rumbling of his stomach. Laughing sheepishly, the young Uzumaki let his words die on his tongue, and motioned for Anko to lead the way. Breakfast was a small affair, considering their budget, and once it was finished, the two shinobi were ready for some training. They headed back to Anko's room, where she told Naruto this particular training would take place. We could do more once the mission has been completed, and we're on our way back to Konoha. With the importance of this assignment, though, I'd rather we try to stay a bit more focused, okay? Naruto nodded in understanding as she answered his unasked question. Once back in the privacy of the Jonin's room, Anko motioned for her blonde companion to take a seat on the bed, while she herself moved to stand towards the center of the floor. Placing her hands in a ram seal before gathering her chakra for the technique, began as in tune as she was with her control and her extensive use of the technique. It was only a moment before her body began to fade out of sight. Naruto watched in rapt attention, blue eyes wide with excitement as his pseudo sensei vanished right in front of him. That excitement soon turned to anger, though, when he felt a sharp whack against the back of his head a moment later. Hey! Naruto sputtered. What the hell was that for? Breaking out into laughter, Uncle let her technique drop before letting herself calm down. Turning her mirth-filled eyes on her blonde companion, though, she answered the angry youth with a bit of wisdom. Ah,